All right, I got Danielle Pashko on the show today. She's a functional nutritionist, chronic illness coach. She's got over 2 decades of experience, and her specialties range from everything: immune health, weight loss, digestive health, children's nutrition, women's health, Lyme disease, that's a huge one, and long COVID, which is, we're all hearing a lot about that.
Yeah.
Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to learn more about, and you're also the founder of Soul Hacker, which we're going to get into today. But I want to just dive right into it. I mean, you have such an amazing story and going through your background and your own healing journey, but like, and I know you talk about this concept, internal martial arts, which we're gonna get into later. But like,
Yeah.
how did this come about? Like, I mean, how did you get here, and what was the big aha moment, I guess, for you?
The internal martial arts part. I think it was for me. Actually, I know it was for me. I was going through a lot of health challenges and I was dealing with the effects of Lyme disease and also long COVID. And I was working in a functional medicine practice. I have been in the world of functional health for 20 plus years and biohacking, and all of this was second nature to me. And I had done everything imaginable, and it just, handfuls of supplements, sitting under a red light all day, doing 100 hyperbaric oxygen sessions, and
You did 100?
like just the whole thing. I mean, I've done everything, and I was so desperate. And so I got really into my visualization, and I always loved watching kung fu movies as a kid. And so in my visualizations, I said, there's nothing else that's physically helping me. So I'm just going to go into tapping into the mindfulness. And I started watching myself doing kung fu, redoing the movements that I remember watching in these movies when I was a child. But I couldn't actually practice it because I wasn't well. I didn't have any strength.
Wow.
And I decided that Tai Chi, because it actually is Kung Fu and it is a martial art, but it's just a soft version and it's internal, that was the only way I can start doing these kind of movements because I didn't I didn't have the strength otherwise. So I found a teacher, and there's an expression: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And my teacher appeared, and I spend the winters down in Florida, down in Miami, also in New York. And I had met this teacher, and he was like my Mr. Miyagi. Like, he was amazing. We spent a lot of time together. We would practice in the park and be in nature and work on grounding and doing these movements. And it sounds like too good to be true, but I am telling you that through doing the Tai Chi and Qigong, I built up my life force, which is called your Qi. I built it up so much. My chronic fatigue lifted. I started regaining strength. And then I was telling my teacher, I really also want to practice the external martial arts and Wing Chun, which is a type of Kung Fu that Bruce Lee did, which I actually practice now. But I went from being really sick to being able to actually heal. And I attribute not everything, but much of it through the martial arts.
It's so amazing because, as a holistic health practitioner myself, and you were surrounded, and you worked in a clinic in New York, I believe, right?
Yeah, I worked in one of the best clinics in New York, and they're excellent. It's sometimes when it's too close, maybe it's even harder, to really get to where you need to get. But it was just, when I had Lyme disease initially, I ended up recovering doing all these alternative and functional modalities, and it worked. And then when I got COVID, for whatever reason, I got this light case, and my neurological symptoms, my fatigue, I was having fainting spells. I was having all these crazy things happening, and I just couldn't get under control. And I also taught yoga for 20 years. So for someone who's so physically fit to feel so down, I was like, this is just not acceptable. And so I just really had to go into my mind and really visualize where I wanted to be. And I saw myself doing the martial arts, and I said, if I'm able to get there, then I'm already healed. It's not about like, how am I going to get better? It's already like, it's the healing that had already happened. And that's all I could focus on.
Yeah. Okay. So that's amazing because I see this a lot of practitioners. Some of us, like, we're so good at what we do. We've seen it all: Lyme disease, da da da. Take this herbs, do this, do hyper.
Right.
We did 100 dives of hyperbaric. Like, if anybody understands, that's a lot of, like, that should alone just heal you with
I was
whatever.
going 3 times a week with the red light. I have red light in my house. I have infrared sauna in my house. Like, I have everything. I was doing every freaking biohacking thing you could think of. Cold plunge, like, you name it, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you to then just have this realization, like, well, maybe I need to be doing martial arts. And not only that, you specialized in yoga.
Yeah,
Like yoga on its own is mindfulness meditation. Yoga
right.
means union. So what, okay, I want to, so back up here. I want to ask you then, what do you think is the biggest difference yoga from yoga and from what you're doing currently in this internal martial arts? Because they're very similar, holding
Right.
poses. Yeah.
And that's what I would think because I started teaching yoga pretty seriously when I was about 22 years old, and I taught everywhere in New York, like every fitness place, every hotel, like everywhere. And yoga is all about moving the prana, which is the energy within you. And it seemed like that would work for me. But for whatever reason, maybe it was because my body was so used to it. It's like you walk every day, you do certain things. It was like doing yoga for me was like brushing my teeth. Maybe
Hmm.
I needed to do something that my body was not used to, kind of like trick the nervous system into doing an activity that was so unfamiliar. And for whatever reason, I think the way that martial arts works, especially when you're dealing with like Qigong, for example, you're working with the five elements and you're also working with the corresponding organs. So let's say, for example, you're having issues with a lot of fear in your life, right? And you're not grounded. Maybe you want to work on your kidneys. So there's specific exercises only for the kidneys. Or let's say you're dealing with issues where you're full of anger and maybe you're dealing with cardiovascular stuff because you're just so hot, that could be your liver. And so there's specific exercises for that. So we were doing all these exercises together to build up the chi to help with those specific organs that were maybe problematic for me, and also getting rooted. I know yoga is done barefoot. I never really did it so much in the park, but for me, just really grounding in nature and doing these movements just really helped to build up the chi in a different kind of way that I did not experience from yoga. I think yoga is great. I'm not knocking it. I think if you do it, you should continue it. It just wasn't ultimately the thing that helped me.
100%, right? And I'm about results. So I
Right.
don't care what you do. If you go, I always tell people, if you go to a functional medicine doc and you get great results, go to that person. If you go to some shaman on a hill and they touch you and you get better, who am I to argue with it?
Right.
It results. So I agree with you. What do you then think though? And you just explained it beautifully, but even as someone who, studies this stuff, I really don't know the difference between prana, energy, in the yogic Ayurvedic term, and
Right.
chi, this chi energy that you're learning from Tai Chi Qigong. I know you kind of talking about these meridians specifically. Is that the way you think of it, the biggest difference? Or like if someone's trying to like parse the difference between the two, how do you see it now from
I think
doing
it's I think it's quite possible, maybe because it's so specifically focused, and also like if you think when you're getting acupuncture and why it's so effective is because you're working on the meridians, and this is and the different organs in your body, and this is really doing it internally and just building up an internal strength that it's strange how yoga just did not do that, but actually moving within this way. I mean, it is known to be very medicinal, like in Asian countries. I mean, they're doing a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong for health, and it's medical. So I think that it's something that happens to just work very well overall for health, and I don't know why the yoga didn't do. I mean, I know people have been healed from it. I really don't know the answer. I'm trying to tell you the best explanation. I
it?
don't know. That's just my experience.
What's great, Danielle, is that people come and they listen to this show from different facets of their life and different parts of their journey. And so when they're hearing your story, I think is so important because maybe that for them, they're listening to you and saying, man, maybe I haven't tried that. Maybe that's what could unlock the door like it did for you and got you better. So, for when you think about how soon did you start noticing results when you started practicing? And I want to be clear, was it Tai Chi and Qigong? Were those like the two ones that you were
Tai
doing?
Chi and Qigong, yeah. That was before I started doing other types of martial arts. But I
Before
started
you
off
started doing the
first.
external stuff to kick
Yeah,
ass. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't strong enough initially. I mean, just the type of changes that I noticed. So, for example, I had something called POTS, which was a lot of people got this after COVID, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and that's basically when you stand up, your heart beats really fast, and your blood pressure can drop, and you feel like you can pass out. And I
Yeah.
was going to several neurologists. I was actually like agoraphobic. I was scared to walk outside because I thought I would faint when I was even and walking in the streets in New York. It's like you don't want to be surrounded. I couldn't deal with the stimuli and the people around me and feeling like I was going to pass out all the time. So I became very rooted I would say within a few weeks, I started having less and less episodes until eventually the POTS completely disappeared. And I had gone to so many people. I had a nurse coming to my house for several months giving me IV immunoglobulin, which is like, it's human plasma. And I was doing this treatment and that didn't work. And it was tens of thousands of dollars. And
Wow.
after I did this, and I would say within weeks, I started noticing a difference. So that was the first thing. The POTS started going away. And then after that, it was like the fatigue started lifting and also feeling just more grounded. I think that's an issue that a lot of people deal with, whether they have a chronic illness or whether they're just super stressed. We're bombarded with so much stimulation in our lives, and you're in a place that's more in nature, right? But in big cities like New York, or even where I am right now in Miami, or wherever people are, when there's just a lot going on, and not to mention just everything in the world, it throws us off. It shakes up our nervous system, and it makes us susceptible to having assaults to our body, whether it's something that's chronic or something that's even acute. But my experience was that my nervous system became much more regulated. And that is a huge key to healing. I mean, whoever you are, even if you're just dealing with, like, maybe you're not, dealing with Lyme disease like I was, or POTS, but you could have a nervous stomach, right? Like something just like that. Or you can deal with migraines. And if you can control your nervous system and get rooted, you can start to watch these things dissipate and eventually leave. And that's really what started to happen to me. So I would say, like, after 6 months, I got my strength enough that I actually started practicing the external martial arts. I became that strong in 6 months.
Yeah. But even what made you continue? If you were you seeing results right away, like small wins in the early beginnings of this practice?
Yes, I mean, I was doing it several times a week. Like, I just wanted to get better. When you don't feel well and you're someone who's been in a healthy body, and it's like you're so physically fit, and then you just suddenly you're in a body that doesn't feel like it belongs to you, you'll do anything you can. So not only was I practicing with my teacher, but practicing at home and doing all these exercises, and he taught me a lot of intestine exercises, and not, we know that 70 to 80% of our immune system lives in our gut, and gut health is a very big player. But also the gut health and being rooted here really helps with fatigue. So we were doing these exercises where we're smacking the stomach and really tapping. And I mean, I would stand in a horse stance, like just outside with no shoes on, just getting grounded, and do a few hundred of these.
Wow.
And just that alone, and other kinds of body tapping, really waking things up. I mean, really, all of this kind of stuff made such a huge difference.
So it's so amazing. And what's coming to mind too is the nervous system, and that's something you hit on
Yeah.
early on. And my son, when he was 3 years old, he got a TBI. He fell at a splash pad,
Oh,
and
wow.
he got a TBI. And ever since then, I noticed his nervous system has been dysregulated. He started getting sick more and more often. He had a bulletproof immune system, and I noticed after that his tummy was off and things were off. And with my background, I'm doing parasite cleanses and all this stuff, and nothing was happening. All of a sudden, Danielle, he starts manifesting warts all over his body, and I go, wait
Oh,
a second.
God.
I go, this is a viral load that his body can't handle. So that's why I started doing these parasite cleanses and stuff. And I finally couldn't get him better. So I reached for outside help. Like you said, sometimes we have to get out of our own, our
Right.
own lane where we think this is the problem. And I had a practitioner at work, and she goes, Joel, he does have parasites. So she tested him and said he does, but that's not the problem. She said, you're trying to attack this, but you're forgetting the nervous system first, the brain. And we did some stuff with his nervous system, and guess what? All the warts and everything went away. Knowing what you know now, is that kind of the first place you'll go with clients and stuff?
Yes.
Talk to us about
Yes.
that.
Because there's so many treatments that can be effective when you have a well-functioning nervous system, right? So the way that we function is, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is, the rest and digest. And then the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight. So if someone's healthy, they can just regulate from one to the other. Something happens, they get stimulated, they're in fight or flight, they come back. Most people, especially who have been through a TBI, like your son, I felt like I had a TBI. My brain was super affected. People who are dealing with something chronic and it's scaring the crap out of them, they live in the sympathetic. They cannot move over to the parasympathetic. They cannot relax. So you could go to an amazing practitioner who is doing a cleanse on you, or trying to remove that mold from your body, or whatever it is that should work on a healthy person. But if you are chronically stressed, it can't even get into the cells. It can't work properly. And it also shuts off your detoxification pathways. So it's like you're getting these heavy treatments. And that's what I was doing. I was throwing the grenade approach at myself, doing these radical treatments, blood cleansing. I told you the IV immunoglobulin. I did something called EBO2, which was like using ozone and UV light blood irradiation, like this crazy treatment, which was like dialysis. And for a healthy person, it would just be like anti-aging and make them feel great and give them so much energy. It felt like it could have killed me because
Wow.
I was not detoxing and I was like getting rid of all these parasites and all these things in my body. But it was like it wasn't happening at the right pace. And that's when if your nervous system is regulated, and then you can do any kind of therapy, your result is going to be much better. So, I mean, I'm definitely much more the functional approach. But let's say you even go to a traditional doctor. Let's say you're like totally allopathic in your method. Those medications are going to work better if your nervous system is regulated. Anything will. So, yes, that is where to start.
So important too. I was just thinking because, I always think of Tai Chi and Qigong as for something older people do. When I was in San Francisco, you go to the parks and there was a whole bunch of mostly Asians in the community. And it was awesome to see. They would get together regularly and do this work. But, my mom just recently got diagnosed with, a terminal cancer. And, one of the things when we look at, like you mentioned earlier with the nervous system,
Yeah.
you start looking at dis-ease and you see the meridians and like you mentioned, the liver and
Yeah.
anger and the kidneys. It's so important. And I was talking to my mom, I think one of her biggest kryptonites is her nervous system. Historically, when we were talking about that, I was thinking like, hey, I have the Headspace app. I'm like, you should practice some meditation and stuff. She's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Right. But I was just thinking as you were talking, something like this where it's a little bit active, you're actually kind of like doing stuff. It doesn't feel like I'm closing my eyes and I'm just like, humming, or like, I think people have this weird thing about meditation. It can look different for everybody, but I'm thinking what you're doing, this kind of Tai Chi and Qigong, it's more movement based and it feels more almost purposeful. And I could see someone like my mom who's very much in her head and like quieting the mind would be very difficult, but I could see this kind of active kind of work, but
Yeah.
also internal could be really, really good. Have you seen that also in people with cancer or just anybody, even like you mentioned, chronic fatigue and other
Right.
issues?
So it's two ways. Tai Chi can be practiced for people who are dealing with some kind of condition, and even if they're dealing with the cancer, they can do it. They can do it in a softer way. You can move at your own pace. But just to know that it's been branded for like seniors, right? And it shouldn't be, because it's a martial form. It's a form of self-defense. Like Tai Chi, you could kill somebody with it if you were practicing it in a martial way. And there was a really good movie. I'm trying to think of the name of it. With Jet Li, who is a martial artist. This is going back like 20 years ago, but
Was
you
this
see
Ip
him.
Man? Was that right? Ip Man?
No, it wasn't Ip Man. Ip Man's like, no, Ip Man's another teacher, but Jet Li was doing Tai Chi, and there was this villain, this kung fu villain in this movie, and he's like, at the end of the movie, you see they're fighting, and basically this like villain is like, what is that new thing that like, what are you doing to me? He's like, you see him like moving his arms and like with the wind blowing and like everything, the leaves are flying around, and he has so much chi, and he's like, it's Tai Chi. And he basically like beat the crap out of him using these movements. So it can be used for health purposes, but it can also be used as a form of self-defense. So if you're someone who's thinking like, oh, it's too boring and slow, it doesn't have to be at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. And I was just thinking, as I know, I haven't really followed this guy, but Paul Chek, he's a well-known holistic practitioner. And I know he uses a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong, and he credits that in a lot. I think he teaches a lot of his students that, and Chek practitioners are really, really good. I was
Mm.
curious, how do you do it daily? Like what is, you've got me intrigued, and I'm thinking like, maybe I should be adding this. Cause I know I have a lot of, I'm a high, I'm sure you work with a lot of entrepreneurs and just people that are go-getters. And as much as I understand the value of meditation and stuff, I don't like to sit that long, Danielle. I'm going to be honest. But I could see myself doing something where, again, if I have like a routine, and I have a martial arts background where I had to memorize dances and do these.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that. So that's so cool.
Yeah, so but it was, I was doing Kempo karate, so it was more very hard and rigid, but there was a softer style of the there was a gung fu style of the art where it was very soft and we would do very soft movements because it was to bring out that yin yang, if you will.
Yeah.
But how do you do it daily? Because I know my biggest thing is, yeah, I like to do it, but I don't want to waste an hour. I always think of like, oh, I don't have an hour. How do you do it daily? Can people do it an hour to 15 to 20 minutes? Like,
So you don't have to do an hour. I mean, I always do body tapping. So that's like I wake up in the morning and, right when I get up, it sort of wakes me up in the morning. So I'm tapping my legs, tapping my arms, I'm hitting my stomach. I'm really waking up the body. And then this is more like a lot of the Qigong stuff. And then I'm also doing other exercises where I'm really letting the flow go through my body. So I'll spend like, even if I spend 15 minutes, I will make sure that I do that every single day as a practice. And it is kind of, it is kind of meditative because you can do it with your eyes closed once you get to know the hang of it. I actually have videos on my website. So people who want to just pick out like 3 things they want to do and maybe spend a half an hour, they can do that in the morning. But it's a great way to start your day because it's just energizing. But I make sure to do it always. And then I actually leave part of it because right now I'm in Miami for the winter and I really love grounding. So I like to go to the beach at sunset, and that's when I end up doing some other things. And also I love Wing Chun Kung Fu. So I do a little bit of some of the practices as well at the beach. And there's also a practice called the Sunam Dao that is part of Wing Chun, which is the basis of Wing Chun. So I do that as I'm looking at the water, and it's very meditative. But
Mm.
I have my shoes off, I'm in the sand, and when I'm in New York, I have a park behind me, and I like to do these exercises too barefoot. So I think it's great to do these exercises combined with grounding, if you can, when you wake up, and then if you want to wind down at the end of the day. I think it really, and you can do your regular workouts too, but this is just something that just really, it changes your state, right? Because like we can wake up in the morning and it's very easy to just be like, have your coffee, run out the door, you're stressed, this and that. And if you make time to do this, like your day is just going to be so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you too. I don't know in martial arts that, there's so many different forms. Are there different forms of Qigong or Tai Chi or like different lineages?
Yes.
And
Yes.
with that being said, is there one that you personally practice or have gravitated to more based on for healing purposes? I don't know.
Yes. So there are different lineages, and my teacher studied with Dr. John Chang, which so that his practice is what he's been showing me, which is different than other people that I practice with. It's just, I mean, it's small things that I've noticed, or sometimes the names of postures are a little bit different. But yeah, it's going to be different wherever you are, depending on who their sifu was, their teacher.
Yeah.
But regardless, they're going to get benefit.
Yeah. Awesome. Talk to us about Soul Hacker and this community that you've created, and what does that look like? And if people are interested in just working with you or getting started, like what does that all look like?
So the way I have it is it's a website where I want people to be interactive, where they can learn how to regulate their nervous system. That's really the purpose, because I found that when I was working with clients, a lot of times that they were chronically ill, like we talked about, even all these therapies, they were not getting better. So how do we start with the nervous system? So that's why I'm doing videos with Tai Chi and Qigong with my teacher, and showing them how to start regulating the nervous system through these movements. And then also I know you're really into biohacking, and I like it too. There's other things that I'm into as well. So I also have community videos where people can learn about different things that can help their healing. For example, like one thing that people might not know about that I would talk about would be molecular hydrogen inhalation therapy was something that was very helpful for me. Are you going to show me a machine right now? Or maybe you have hydrogen water in your hand? You went over. I thought you were grabbing one.
Yeah, no, I was just laughing. I was smiling. I literally just posted an episode of Molecular. I just had an
Oh, did
episode.
you? Oh, that's
Yeah.
so funny.
So,
So
but
here's
it's great to hear because I was looking at getting that for my mom, and I was doing all
I
the
have my own machine. Yeah.
you like it. You've seen notice benefits.
I noticed benefits. So once I started working on my nervous system, that's one of the things that I added in, and I felt like it helped, especially like talking about TBIs. It's so good for the brain. So
Mm.
things like that people might not know about, have those discussions where I
I'm
might.
imagining you doing Tai Chi with a nasal cannula. You're like stacking your hacks. I'm just imagining that.
Well, it's a good thing to have a lot of different things to turn to. So, that's something I might talk about, or I might talk about, another great thing that I love is Nuka. That's a very good therapy that actually did help me as well once I was feeling better. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
No,
Also
it's a
great for TBI, but it's great for the brain, great for brain fog. It's a very gentle manipulation on the neck that actually stimulates the cerebral spinal fluid in the brain. It works in the vagus nerve, and that's really good. Or maybe I'll work on other, or show people how to do vagus nerve stimulation. So there's certain that will also help the nervous system. So just the content that I'm sharing is all related to how can we calm ourselves down and heal, but in a more natural way. So I'm building a community where people can learn about these concepts, and also I'm bringing in experts who can share their experience of how they've helped people.
Yeah, very neat. So yeah, it's not just Tai Chi, Qigong, and
No, that I mean that's a big part of it, but I think you have to be open to a lot of things. I know there's people who are like, this is the one thing that helps, like maybe for somebody else, for me, it might have helped me 80%, but for somebody else, it may help them 25%. And then there's other things that they need to work on. So I think it's good to have options of like you said, stacking your hacks, like have a lot of things in your arsenal and be like, okay, that didn't work, but let's see what else I can do. But let's just start with regulating the nervous system. And then from there, we can try these different types of modalities.
yeah, no, I love that. And what you're doing, I think, is really cool. It's like people get access to a high level coach like yourself, and they get to pick your brain on. It sounds like they get to ask you other things, not just related to the nervous system. And you've gone through so many different modalities. You're a great person to ask. Like, hey, if it were me and I had this diagnosis or this state, like I probably wouldn't waste my money on this. I would do this, right?
Right.
You're a
And,
great
and
person.
even nutrition. I mean, I'm not going to forget about that, since that's originally what I was doing almost all of my life. Definitely does play a big role, and I think it's people understanding their own biology and understanding their metabolic type, and that's something we'll look into so people know how to eat, or what foods they may be affecting them, or to get their metabolic health in order. A lot of times I might even suggest that someone wears a glucose monitor, and not for someone who's diabetic, but just really to track things. So like, that's another thing that I have people do that I work with a lot of times, that they're not getting better, to see what's going on and how dysregulated their blood sugar is. So it's like, there's so many ways to help somebody. And it's very individualized. So if someone wants to work with me privately, I can get, really deep into what's going on, versus if someone's just kind of peeking around and wants to get some information from the website, then they can use that as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was going to ask you any like testimonials or just any like miraculous, transformations from folks that started doing some of the Qigong practices with you that similar to your story where, they're like, I've tried everything. What the hell? I'll try what you're doing, Danielle. It sounds
Definitely with the brain stuff,
yeah.
and feeling better in their brain with fatigue, and also depression. It's interesting how, it's normal for a lot of people, and they're not feeling good. Obviously, they're going to go through like a dark time, and this changes your state. And that is one thing that I've noticed, that people have told me, God, I feel so much better. Like, one person reached out to me that I was working with, and she's like, my husband and I are getting along better because he sees like my mood is better. Like, I'm doing these practices, and I'm feeling happier. And I think that's a big part of it. So, there's different things that happen to people, whether it's fatigue, or whether it's their brain health, or their energy, or they're just in a better like mental state.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Talk to me about just any new and exciting projects that you're working on, other than everything we talked about. I mean, but anything else that you're excited about coming up that you're creating?
This is like probably the compilation of everything that I've been working on for so many years, because I did so many different things in healing. I would say I started in this industry when I was 18 years old. I studied with a shaman, and I was like, I kind of, before wellness was a thing, like I was kind of in this world. And then having my own health situations. I went through thyroid cancer when I was 31. I was already in practice, and then the Lyme, and then the COVID, and seeing like how it can hit you. And then also, and I lost my mom from cancer when I was
Mm.
very young. So I know, and she taught me a lot about the mind body connection. And she left me all these very amazing books when I was like 13 years old. And that's why I moved into this field,
Yeah.
not knowing that it would be a journey of mine to be dealing with my own health, which I was hoping to not experience. So I think for me, Soul Hacker is just really the place where I want to be able to share. It's almost like I've been in training my whole life to just learn to help people. So beyond this, I don't know. I guess we'll see where it goes. You know, I get asked to do like workshops and things like that, and speak, and that's great. But if I can just help people, that's a big goal for me. You know, I just want to help people on a bigger scale, and whatever that looks like, I'm excited about.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. And I mean, it sounds like scaling Soul Hacker and making it even more of a household name, because I think you're onto something too. We know this world is not going to get any less stressful. So I think prioritizing the nervous system first with whatever modality people choose, whether it's yoga, mindfulness, qigong, tai chi, working with you, I think it's so crucial. So I'm glad that you're taking a stand and bringing awareness to this so that more people can get involved, because it's crucial. And you're doing it at a really affordable price. If people want to go check out your website, you
Oh
can go.
yeah, $10 a month. I mean, and basically, like I think about what people spend to get well, you know, and
More than anybody. I mean, you probably
yeah,
spend on
it's
your health.
ridiculous, and it's unfair because a lot of people who are spending so much money on their health, a lot of them, you know, at this point can't even work. So it's like it's such a demand that's put on them. So to be able to have something that's accessible and not have to, you know, worry about spending a fortune, that's really what I want to be able to do. You know, just I think if all of us can give a little bit of that in the world, it's like you're doing, you know, just sharing ideas and concepts and just helping people in a bigger way. Um,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
really
that's huge.
cool.
Daniel, I wanted to ask you also, so if this is obviously one of many things that you do, but you mentioned nutrition.
Yeah.
You have a background, when I introduced you, but people probably forgot because we went right into this mindfulness kind
Yeah.
of martial arts. You have an extensive background in functional nutrition. So could you just kind of talk a little bit about that? And like, if people are interested in more that you do, because it's not just this one thing, what else do you do
Yeah.
that
And
you think?
I'm not a martial arts teacher, by the way. So that's another thing. So I don't want to confuse anybody with that. All the videos I'm doing with my teacher. I mean, I'm a dedicated student at this point, and I love it, and I've seen the effects, so I want to share it. But nutrition, yes. I mean, that is my background. I've always worked in clinical practice, in functional clinics. Like that's how I started. I actually started even before that. I was developing nutraceuticals for doctors, so I would help them make custom formulations. So I was very into the supplement world, and then I ended up wanting to see clients myself. So, but I always go, you know, heavy into like it's weird because my philosophy is changing a little bit. I would go very heavy into lab work initially, like doing lots of testing, you know, testing for everything, doing like viral panels, looking at mold, looking at Lyme, looking at, you know, different kinds of infections in the body, looking at like a lot of markers that people, like a lot of doctors maybe wouldn't look at. So the clinics I were in would always do that. And then based on heavy lab work, I would put together a program. And I actually can order lab work myself. So it's like if someone wants to get it, you know, a test of their uh, like a stool test, right? So they want to do like a GI map, or they want to look at the adrenals, and they can do a saliva test, and I can look at their hormones and their cortisol, and I can do all of this, and I think it is good. I mean, before this all happened to me, I would have said that functional testing is absolutely the way to go, and that's the way you find out everything, and that's the way you heal. It has value. I think testing is good just because you should know what's going on with your body.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily agree with all the approaches that I did maybe 2 years ago in terms of like throwing everything at something, you know, when you're not feeling well. So that's where I would say, you know, as a nutritionist, like I'll look at somebody's diet, and I'll work with them a lot on their food and try to get their blood sugar regulated. But also, I I really go back to like their emotions, their nervous system. Like why is it why you're here? Like I
Yeah.
don't know if I can help you 100%. Even like recommending all these supplements and green juices and all this stuff. Like it's just everything has been turned upside down for me from what I saw in my own personal life. So um, I hope that makes sense.
It
But
makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've gone through my own journey too, and kind of the same realization you have. I mean, I can run labs and do these things too, and again,
yeah,
I think it's great. I think it's great to have the data, But
Right.
I've been around so many great healers and people like you that you've been exposed to, and it's like they heal people without a lab. And the mind is so damn powerful. Like that is the ultimate healer. Easier said than done. Easier said than done to regulate your nervous system and mindset.
Right.
And I'm aware of that. But I've just seen so many miracles that have nothing to do with the lab work.
And also, what I do see with nutrition is people are always pushing certain diets. And I think it is so customized because, like, one person can do really well as a vegan. Someone else can feel terrible as a vegan, right? It's like I felt the worst I ever did in my entire life as a vegan. I was 25 pounds heavier and I was eating everything organic and this is like years and years ago. And it just wasn't for me. And then it's like at a different point in my life, I felt really great doing a paleo diet, and then even that wasn't good. And then I went carnivore when I was going through all of this and wore a glucose monitor and I like basically quantified everything that I ate. And like I felt amazing doing it that way. And I think like people need to be adaptable to knowing that sometimes they stick to like one dogma or one way of eating, and I think like everything is very individual. So that's something too. I don't like subscribe to any one diet, and I think you have to look at people as a whole and see what is really going to work for them. So yeah, my thoughts of nutrition have totally changed too, to being very personalized.
Yeah. What's great about you too is that you've gone through so much. So you have that knowledge, you have that wisdom, and you can speak to people in that way. A lot of people can. It's like they just read the literature or like, oh, there's double blind study. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
Eat your 5 servings of vegetables a day. Oh, did you have your oatmeal this morning? Well, like oatmeal makes me feel like crap. Like
yeah,
I don't recommend. You know what I mean? It's like you of course you do, but it's a lot of people they what they learn in school, and if they're in good health and they just follow a certain diet and they're already in good health, it's fine. But once you're not feeling well and then you actually start playing around with things, you're like, now I can understand why certain diets don't work for certain people. So yeah, I wish I didn't have to experience it firsthand to really learn about a lot of this, but I can kind of like empathize, and my intuition with people is pretty good. Like
yeah.
working with them and kind of getting a sense about what they're eating or why it may not be working or what's going on in their lifestyle, and uncovering things that are not maybe seen by other practitioners just because I know it all too well.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's important, and I just think we're being called for these things for a reason, right? It
Yeah.
just, and I, even my mom being diagnosed, I'm like, this is just a chance for me to learn and grow more, either grow with my mom, but then also learn more about these things. How can I pass this knowledge on to my clients? I think it's so powerful. So like, I just look at it, everything you've been through. I'm sure it's the same thing. It's like you're here, and this is
I
maybe
mean, listen, I do say that, and I do believe that for the most part. Of course, it's we're human, so it's normal to like go through like what the hell, like why is this
yes,
happening?
yes,
But then you get to a place of clarity, and then you're like, okay, I understand. Like everything's a test. There's a lesson in this. There's a reason this is happening. But I think the way you pull out of your challenges too when you're dealing with so much is by sharing. So I think
mm,
that's like a huge goal, is like to constantly share with the world. I think it's like it's sort of it help it's like I feel like it's like protection in the world, like karmically, like to give back and share what you've learned so you don't have to learn this lesson anymore, and you can give in the process. And I think that's a big part of what I like to do.
yeah, huge. I wanted to ask you, and I want to tell. Speaking of sharing and giving, I want to give a call to action, find out where people can find you. But before you, I'm actually curious, just because you are so well versed in the holistic health space and a biohacker too. And like you said, I love all these biohacks and been exposed to a lot of them for the years. But at the end of the day, I found at the end of the day, most of them are just hacks. And like, if you really want to move and get somewhere in life, it takes mastery and it takes time, and you've got to go through a process. You can't just buy. And for example, I love this too. You can't buy a molecular hydrogen machine and just, oh yeah, that's it. Like now all of a sudden I'm better. Probably not. It
Right.
can help, but it won't be the only thing. But having said that, is there a favorite, what do you like the most? I mean, I have a vibration platform. I have a red light therapy device at my house. I don't have a molecular hydrogen inhaler yet, but what is just one of your favorite ones? I'm just curious, just to bounce ideas with someone who's in this world.
I mean, I have a red light. I love my molecular hydrogen machine. I mean, my rituals that I do every day for health are a combination of so much. One of my big hacks, prayer. Honestly, I think that works just as well. Like I get up first thing in the morning and I do a lot of talking to my creator. I really
Mm.
do. And I do a lot of visualization and meditation. And then yeah, the red light, if I'm going out and I need a boost, like it helps. Or it's also good for like to stimulate your vagus nerve, you know, if you get on
Mm.
your belly, or it can help you sleep better, you know. So like it's good. I like that I have it, but would I say it's like amazing? You know, yeah, I like infrared sauna because it's detoxifying. I do it once in a while. It's good, but I do like the hydrogen machine. That's more of a regular. I would say I do that. I do that every day, and I make hydrogen water with my machine. So that's probably, if out of any of them, like the units, that's the thing I use the most is the hydrogen machine. I happen to love it.
Okay. Awesome. I love that. Danielle, tell us where everybody can connect with you. Find actually before I do that, anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
I think you did ask a lot. Mm, I think we covered a good bit. I do.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Last but not least, where can people find you, connect with you, learn more about you? Where are you at on social and your website? Please let us know so people can connect with you
So
offline.
on social, the place I am the most is Instagram, which is the Soul Hacker, and Soul Hacker is spelled SOULHAKKER, kind of a play on words of biohacking, hacking the soul,
Mm-hmm.
and then also my website, which is soulhacker.com.
Amazing. Danielle Pashko, Soul Hacker. We love you. Thank you for being on the show. I appreciate you so
Thank you
much.
so much.